New STEM Express entry stream revamped check eligibility, updated occupations and titles for 2025. Canada's revamped STEM Express entry stream for 2025 promises new opportunities, but challenges remain at the border and within the application process. Families are facing uncertainty, with some even losing work status as their cases drag on. As political discussions intensify, questions loom about where the parties stand on immigration and the impact of recent caps. If you are interested in this topic, please pay attention and watch the video through to the end to get all the information. Please hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification bell for an upcoming video. Canada's express entry system continues to adapt to changing labor market demands, and for skilled professionals in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the updates introduced in February 2025 mark a major shift. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada revised the STEM category by removing 19 occupations and adding 6 new ones, reshaping who qualifies for fast-tracked permanent residency. This overhaul has opened new doors for some professionals while closing them for others. Whether you're an engineer, technologist, or IT specialist, understanding the new rules is essential if you're aiming to immigrate to Canada through express entry. What is the STEM category in express entry? Introduced in 2023, category-based draws in express entry were designed to prioritize immigration candidates from key economic sectors. The STEM category is one of the most prominent, inviting candidates with expertise in fields like engineering, computer science, and technical design. Rather than drawing solely based on a comprehensive ranking system score, IRCC conducts targeted draws to select candidates whose job experience matches specific in-demand occupations. In 2025, the STEM list was refined to better reflect Canada's evolving workforce needs. New list of eligible STEM occupations, as of February 2025. The revised list now features 11 in-demand occupations, categorized by their national occupation classification codes. Architecture and Science Managers, NOC 20011. Civil Engineering Technologists and Technicians, NOC 22300. Civil Engineers, NOC 21300. Cybersecurity Specialists, NOC 21220. Electrical and Electronics Engineering Technologists and Technicians, NOC 22310. Electrical and Electronics Engineers, NOC 21310. Geological Engineers, NOC 21331. Industrial and Manufacturing Engineers, NOC 21321. Insurance Agents and Brokers, NOC 63100. Mechanical Engineering Technologists and Technicians, NOC 22301. Mechanical Engineers, NOC 21301. Each of these occupations reflects Canada's commitment to boosting economic resilience by attracting highly skilled talent from around the world. Key updates: what's new in 2025? The most significant change in 2025 is not just the trimming of the STEM occupation list but the addition of highly specific job titles within broader NOC categories. These include previously overlooked technical specialists whose roles are critical to sectors like infrastructure, energy, electronics, and manufacturing. Here are examples of new roles now officially recognized under existing NOC codes. New job titles now included under existing STEM categories. 1. Civil Engineering Technologists and Technicians, NOC 22300. Bridge Design Technician. Highway Engineering Technician. Building Materials Testing Technician. Municipal Infrastructure Engineering Assistant. Geotechnical or Soil Technologist. Structural Inspector and Investigator. These roles emphasize Canada's growing infrastructure needs and focus on urban development, transportation, and environmental safety. 2. Electrical and Electronics Engineering Technologists and Technicians, NOC 22310. Communications Technologist. Electronics Manufacturing Technologist. Electricity Distribution Network Technologist. Metering Technologist. Microwave Maintenance Technician. With the expansion of smart cities and digital infrastructure, these technical experts are increasingly in demand. 3. Geological Engineers, NOC 21331. Geophysical Engineer. Hydrogeological Engineer. These specializations are vital in resource extraction, environmental conservation, and disaster risk assessment sectors where Canada has robust industrial activity. 4. Mechanical Engineering Technologists and Technicians, NOC 22301. HVAC Technologist. Marine Engineering Technologist. Mechanical Design Technologist. Tool and Die Designer. Manufacturing and energy efficiency are key focuses for Canada's industrial future, making these roles essential to the national economy. 5. Mechanical Engineers, NOC 21301. acoustics engineer, automotive engineer, energy conservation engineer, fluid mechanics engineer. These engineers play a leading role in sectors such as green energy, vehicle innovation, aerospace, and smart manufacturing. Why this matters for aspiring immigrants. If you were previously ineligible under the STEM category, these updates may now work in your favor. On the other hand, if your occupation was among the 19 removed in 2025, you may need to consider alternative immigration streams or provinces that nominate professionals through the Provincial Nominee Program. To maximize your chances of success, review your NOC code and job duties carefully. Ensure your work experience aligns with the revised occupational descriptions. Monitor Express Entry draws for targeted STEM invitations. Keep your Express Entry profile updated with new job roles, qualifications, and certifications. Family of 4 jailed in U.S. for weeks after Canadian border guards turned them away. Lawyer says CBSA focused on small discrepancies to reject family that qualified for entry under exception. Araceli saw Niagara Falls for the first time on a cold Monday in March as she crossed the Rainbow Bridge toward Canada with her common-law husband and 2 daughters, aged 4 and 14, fleeing the immigration raids and sudden deportation sweeping across the U.S. She said they felt happiness and hope as they walked across the bridge, using their cell phones to capture a cloud of mist and spray from the falls in the distance above the Niagara River, still caked in ice. In a yellow envelope, Araceli carried documents she hoped would be the key to opening the gates to Canada for her family birth certificates proving her relationship to her brother, who is a Canadian citizen. We could see Canada, there, ahead, and behind us, the U.S., said Araceli, who is originally from El Salvador. New opportunity, a new life. But Canadian border guards sent the family back to the U.S., where they entered a shadowy limbo jailed in holding cells at the U.S. port of entry in Niagara Falls, New York, without a breath of outside air for nearly 2 weeks. She spoke with CBC News in Buffalo, New York, where she's currently staying while awaiting a decision from immigration authorities. CBC News is only identifying Araceli by her first name because she remains in a precarious situation in the U.S. The Canada Border Services Agency's handling of Araceli's case and the family's treatment by U.S. border authorities is raising renewed questions about the Safe Third Country Agreement between the two countries. Under the agreement, refugee claims must be submitted in the country where people first arrive. For this reason, Canada turns away most asylum seekers who attempt to enter from the U.S. at land border crossings, but there are exceptions to this rule. One of them allows people to seek asylum if they have an anchor relative who is, among other categories, a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident or has an accepted refugee claim. Not a safe situation. The U.S. is the only place considered a safe third country by Canada. But some U.S. lawmakers say it's no longer safe there for immigrants under President Donald Trump. The Trump administration has basically ended asylum in the United States, said Representative Zoe Lofgren, a Democrat and member of the Subcommittee on Immigration and Citizenship. It's not a safe situation. Araceli and her common-law husband both lived undocumented for several years in the U.S. They decided to join family in Canada to escape the threat posed by the Trump administration's hardline immigration policies. We were living in fear, she said. So they took the risk of exposing themselves to U.S. immigration authorities by attempting to make a refugee claim in Canada. However, the joy the family felt on March 17 at the Canadian port of entry in Niagara Falls, Ontario, slowly turned to dread when an official with the CBSA began reviewing Araceli's documents. She said the official seized on slight differences with their parents' names in the documents. Araceli's birth certificate listed her father with 1 last name, but on her brother's document, he was listed with 2 last names. While their mother's 2 last names matched on both records, there were variations on her first name, though each started with the same letter. They told me that the documents I presented did not convince them. I told them, I have a brother in Canada and we can call him right now. But nothing could convince them not to deport us. She said border officials handed the family their backpacks and drove them back across the Rainbow Bridge. U.S. Customs and Border Protection put them in a holding cell with cots, a couch and a television, where she said they stayed for 3 days. If they needed to use the bathroom, she said, they would have to bang on the door to be escorted to the facilities. They were then moved to a windowless cell with 4 cots and a half wall that hid the toilet and sink at one end of the room. Araceli said she and her husband would wait until their daughters fell asleep before allowing themselves to cry. But we drew strength from our children. We did not want them to see us like that. We tried to be strong for them, she said as she drew diagrams of the 2 cells on a notepad. Randomness and cruelty. Family detention is a new and worrying trend along the northern border, according to U.S.-based advocates. Jennifer Connor, Executive Director of Justice for Migrant Families, in Buffalo, New York, said she's received reports of children and families held for days and weeks at ports of entry in Detroit, Buffalo, and Champlain, New York, located near the Quebec border. This is something that she says rarely, if ever, happened along the northern border, until Trump's second term. There's kids young enough to be in diapers and who are being locked up, she said, adding that it can be difficult to locate people who have been detained at ports of entry because regulations are unclear. That element of randomness and cruelty really increased, said Connor. There is no system for finding people in a port of entry. According to a document outlining agency standards provided to CBC News by CBP, detainees should generally not be held for longer than 72 hours in CBP hold rooms or holding facilities. The document said that every effort must be made to hold detainees for the least amount of time. In some cases, it noted that individuals are held longer if there is no space available at detention facilities. Frozen sandwiches and a camp shower. Araceli said the days inside the cell were long and difficult. They would be fed frozen chicken sandwiches thawed by CBP officers in a microwave. Sometimes, she said, the meat would still be frozen at its center, so they would eat around the edges. Water would come in a pitcher and sometimes they drank from the sink. They had no access to shower facilities, but Araceli said they were provided use of a camping-style shower bag and each person got to use one bag of water. She said they left the cell together 3 times during their 2-week incarceration to walk in a hallway lined with windows. You could see the Canadian side, the Canadian flag, she said. Their 4-year-old would get excited during these outings, which allowed her to run around and play with a ball. Araceli said she was the focus of their attention throughout their detention, and that their 14-year-old did her best to keep her sibling occupied, even as the teen turned inward and became more pensive. At the little girl's urging, they would sometimes play hide-and-seek in the cell, wrapping themselves in blankets made from material that reminded Araceli of the covers thrown over horses in El Salvador. A thread of hope. Then, on March 28, they received word that CBSA officials would meet with them again. There had been frantic work behind the scenes by their family to authenticate their records and enlist the help of a Canadian lawyer and advocates on both sides of the border. Again we walked across the bridge. We were feeling joy, said Araceli. We were feeling certainty. But any hope they had was soon dashed. CBSA officials again told the family they didn't trust their documents. Araceli said it all happened very quickly. They told us we had to be deported immediately to the US, that they had been very generous in entertaining our case a second time, she said. One CBSA official told them it would be better if they were sent straight back to El Salvador, she said. He said the US would deport us back to El Salvador anyway. The family returned to the cell at the Niagara Falls, New York, port of entry. I don't think it's something that Canada should be complicit in, turning children back to those kinds of conditions, said Heather Neufeld, the family's Ottawa-based lawyer. She said CBSA officers had the option of calling Araceli's brother, the anchor relative, and interviewing him, but chose not to. I've never seen a determination before that was so nitpicky on discrepancies, she said. The CBSA border officials did not take the time to fully think out how things work in El Salvador, the fact that documents don't always look the same as in Canada. Lawyer seeks judicial review of CBSA decision. Neufeld has filed for a judicial review of the CBSA rejection with the federal court, but the case is up against a ticking clock in the U.S. On April 1, a CBP officer came to tell them that Araceli's husband was being taken to a detention center in Batavia, New York, before a deportation hearing scheduled for May. The family was given 3 minutes to say their goodbyes. Araceli is currently living in a shelter in Buffalo with her daughters, and must check in weekly with immigration authorities. Her deportation hearing is scheduled for Christmas Eve. We fled El Salvador, and then we fled from here, from this uncertainty, to Canada, she said. Now, our family is separated, just because they wouldn't believe us. It seems really unjust. But we trust in God and soon, we'll get through this process. Everything will come to the light that we were telling the truth. In a statement, CBSA said anyone turned away from Canada under the Safe Third Country Agreement enters into the care of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. https://www.reuters.com/world/americas/some-migrants-canada-lose-work-status-while-applications-language-2025-04-21. Show website. Some migrants in Canada lose work status while applications languish. Migrants living in Canada are facing longer waits to renew paperwork that would allow them to keep working legally, as growing backlogs and changing rules stymie efforts to maintain legal status, according to interviews and data obtained by Reuters. Losing status means people who have paid taxes cannot work or access medical care and other services in a country that has long prided itself for its universal health care. Canada is trying to reduce the number of migrants in the country as they have been blamed for straining services, a sharp change after years of growth, and is relying on people to leave voluntarily to meet its targets. Canada's Immigration Department said people can work while their application is processed but did not respond by the deadline to a question about people who lose status because of long waits. According to the Immigration Department's website, people can keep working as long as they get a labor market impact assessment needed to maintain their status within 60 days of applying to renew their work permit. Reuters spoke with 4 families who lost work permits because they have been waiting for much longer than that. It is not known how many people are in this position. The labor market impact assessment processing time for temporary workers hoping to become permanent residents in Canada has been increasing since at least fall 2022. And almost tripled from 58 business days in September 2023 to 165 business days in March 2025, according to data from Canada's Employment Department obtained by Reuters. The department said the lengthier waits are due in part to an influx of applications but would not provide the number of applications pending by month. Lawyers and experts say changing rules, as well as more applicants, may be contributing to the growing backlog. The number of people applying for work permits within the country has grown compared to last year, as has the share of those applications that Canada is refusing, data from Canada's Immigration Department shows. An email seen by Reuters from Service Canada, which processes these applications, said that as of April 1, 2025, the department was still processing labor market impact assessment applications submitted a year earlier. "We are seeing a backlog now of more than a year. It's the first time we are seeing such a delay," said immigration consultant Kunwar Sierra. "People are losing their immigration status," Sierra said, "and some are working under the table for exploitative employers or falling victim to unscrupulous actors who give them bad advice, for example by urging them to apply for asylum when they may not have a strong case." Reuters spoke with migrants who have returned to their country of origin and to people living legally in Canada with no ability to support themselves. Living undocumented in Canada has been rare in part because it is so difficult to access services without status. Estimates have put Canada's undocumented population in the hundreds of thousands in a country of some 40 million. Canada's Liberal government pledged to give undocumented people status but then backtracked and said it would provide it on a small scale for people working in certain sectors. Prime Minister Mark Carney, who leads polls ahead of an April 28 election, promises to cap immigration for now. A dream shattering. Devi Acharya was too scared to go to a hospital when she started to miscarry in early March. She could not afford another medical bill. "If I got medical attention on time, maybe we could have saved the baby." Acharya does not have health coverage for the same reason she cannot work. Her work permit expired while she waited for a labor market impact assessment, so if she seeks medical care, she could be handed a hefty bill. Canada's temporary foreign worker program requires most employers wanting to hire non-citizens in Canada temporarily to file for a labor market impact assessment that says the position cannot be filled by a local resident. A spokesperson for the Employment Department said demand for its temporary foreign worker program varies, that it received a high volume of applications prior to last fall and that it expects processing times to improve over the next 6 months. Acharya came to Canada from India with her husband and son in October 2022, working in housekeeping at Prince Rupert's Highliner Hotel in British Columbia. She liked the work. She and her husband bought a house. They applied for new labor market impact assessments in September, her immigration consultant told Reuters. They have received no response. Their work permits expired. They are in Canada legally but cannot work. Navdev, now 5 years old, cannot go to school. 2 years before we were dreaming of making Canada home, she said, and now it's shattering. Where do the parties stand on immigration? This consultant says recent caps left thousands stranded. While immigration might not be the most pressing issue for some voters ahead of this year's federal election, a Hamilton immigration consultant says whichever party forms government will need to address recent immigration caps. "I would like to ask them how they intend to handle all of the students and workers that came to Canada in the last 2 to 3 years, even 4 years, who were promised a pathway to permanent residency at the end of their study term or their working term." Charlene De Silva told CBC Hamilton. De Silva said people have been left stranded after the federal government made sweeping changes to Canada's immigration system in recent months. As part of a new immigration plan, Ottawa cut the projected number of new permanent residents to 395,000 this year, an 18.5% reduction from 2024. The target will drop further to 380,000 in 2026 and 365,000 in 2027, as the federal government aims for a 0.2% population decline over the next 2 years. The federal government made these sweeping changes to Canada's immigration system as the country's population continues to grow, reaching more than 41.5 million in October. Immigration has been a major factor in this growth, as concerns rise over the increasing need for services like housing and healthcare. Immigration Minister Mark Miller said the government expects the changes to yield approximately 300,000 fewer study permits over the next 3 years. People came to Canada with pure intentions. Meanwhile, last September the Liberal government announced it would slash the number of international student permits it issues by another 10%. The government says the new target for 2025 and 2026 will be 437,000 permits. In 2024, the target was 485,000 permits. According to De Silva, those people came to Canada with pure intentions, but thousands of them have now been left without a clear path to become permanent residents. They have worked hard, they have studied hard, and now to put them in a position of nothing basically and having to go back to their countries and start again, I think is a very unfair thing to do, so I'm hoping that the government will implement some sort of policies to help those individuals and make sure there are no disturbances, De Silva said. How do they intend to handle those people who have now been left stranded or finding themselves in a position where they cannot meet the new requirements to get permanent residency? De Silva's consultancy office provides support including a free consultation to people considering immigrating to Canada, visiting, working, or studying in Canada, including refugees. Additionally, they also assist clients with renewals, extensions, replacement of immigration documents, appeals and hearings. Stricter guidelines, stricter requirements. De Silva said everyone in the immigration consulting business has been affected by the changes made by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. If your business relies upon assisting those types of applications, temporary residence Immigration Canada has now reduced the amount of temporary resident types of applications that they are accepting, she said. As it pertains to the study permits and work permits, they've made stricter guidelines, stricter requirements for any applicant intending to study in Canada or work in Canada. De Silva said the changes have definitely reduced the amount of clients that have made inquiries to our office about those particular pathways. It has forced us to look at the future of immigration in the next year and with the new government that could possibly be coming in, or the new Prime Minister. It has definitely reduced the amount of intakes that we have had, and we have shifted our focus from study permit inquiries and work permit inquiries to those that are already inside Canada that have a status that are possibly getting close to expiration, and how we can possibly help those people either extend, maintain, or change their status to that of a permanent resident, she added. CBC News has reached out to the leading political parties to ask about their plans to address immigration levels. Both the Liberal Party and the Green Party promised to provide comments but did not do so by publication deadline. The Conservatives did not respond to CBC's request. NDP will fight for students, immigrant workers. And McGarth, a spokesperson for the NDP, says international students and migrant workers were promised a pathway to permanent residency, and the Liberal government has broken that promise, leaving thousands in limbo. The NDP will fight to ensure that people who've come here, contributed, and built their lives in Canada are treated fairly and given a clear, achievable path to stay, McGarth wrote in an emailed statement to CBC Hamilton. Here's what the other parties are saying about immigration. Conservatives, those who want to come to Canada deserve a plan that is clear, efficient, and compassionate. But the Liberals' record when it comes to immigration is one of failure, mismanagement, and backlogs that last for years. It is unacceptable that lives and careers have been put on hold and families have been kept apart for years because of Trudeau's broken immigration system. Conservatives believe in a well-functioning immigration system that promotes family reunification and allows new immigrants to achieve their dreams. Greens, the party has made the following promises in their newly released platform. Provide annual funding to reduce processing times for permanent residency applications and expand pathways for essential workers. Create a new employer-driven immigration program to transition foreign workers in essential sectors to permanent residency. Commit to a principled, case-by-case process for regularizing the status of undocumented residents, one that upholds Canada's humanitarian values and recognizes their contributions to our communities and economy. Reduce PR application fees and financial requirements for international students, eliminating excessive financial burdens. Liberals, according to the Liberal Party's platform, a Mark Carney-led government will return immigration to sustainable levels by capping the total number of temporary workers and international students to less than 5% of Canada's population by the end of 2027, from a past high of 7.3%, to ease the strain on housing, public infrastructure, and social services. Stabilize permanent resident admissions to at less than 1% of Canada's population annually beyond 2027 with a focus on attracting top global talent that will drive economic growth and prosperity. Our immigration plan will also allow for the reunification of families, while maintaining Canada's global leadership in prioritizing the world's most vulnerable, including human rights defenders and refugees. Work toward a fairer and faster process and enhance service delivery for applicants by leveraging digital service tools to reduce processing times and eliminate backlogs to ensure that Canada's immigration system is more reliable for families, businesses, and applicants. As immigration policies evolve, the struggles of migrants highlight the urgent need for reform. The future of migration in Canada depends on how quickly these challenges are addressed and whether political action can provide clearer, more accessible pathways for those seeking a new life.